Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some of the colleagues today.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we got a GM 911 from Playfair. And here's the situation. He's got a Dragonborn Paladin fighting with a pair of Ancestral scimitars gifted to him by his family. And that's the only backstory that he's got. That, is according to the DM, any real merit. They went through a dungeon crawl, and he'd rather use his family scimitars than the +1 scimitars found in the treasure vault. So the DM wants to know, how does he go about, helping out the player by letting him use the family scimitars without it being, too crazy or too underpowered, because, as you go levels, you're supposed to get better treasure.
That's one way of looking at it, but not necessarily. I mean, okay, so if you go back towards more like first edition and second edition, yes, as you gain more levels, your power through treasure and equipment would grow, but not in the way it does in Pathfinder 3.5, where it was actually factored into your character.
You needed, okay, by the time you hit 5th level, in 3rd edition, you really needed that +1 sword, and by the time you're at 9th, you really should be pushing that 2, pushing that 3.
Yeah, the role-playing games, especially the D&D-esque ones, are always been a matter of part art, part science, right? Well, earlier editions of the game was much more art than science, and then one of the things they did with 3.5 is they really went heavy to the science side, which let us down that road, the bloat, and then the power creep, and then Pathfinder, and now with 5th edition, I feel like they found more of an equilibrium. There's still a lot of art to it, as opposed to science, but it's done in a nice way where one of the things too, for most things in this edition, it's like magic, not magic.
Right.
So whether it's a +1 sword or a +3 sword, you can still hit the guy that's immune to magic weapons.
Correct.
Or has resistance to non-magic weapons.
And it doesn't even have to be a +1. It could just be magic.
Well, yeah, there's even that. There's many items in the DMG where they don't even have a statistical bonus.
Just counts as a magic weapon.
Which I really enjoy that. I like that. It's something that I incorporated into my games years ago.
You did that. You did that in 2nd edition. I had a +0, sword that was +3 versus undead. I was like, what do you mean it's a +0? I don't understand.
See, everybody, Nerdarchy Dave's been stingy with the magic weapons for a long time.
Yeah, and ahead of the curve apparently too.
Yes, and
with the magic, not magic.
Yes.
So that being said, one of the things he's asking is, should I just enchant his ancestral weapons to keep them on par with the rest of the party, and do I keep doing this over and over again? So there are actually several different routes you can go with this, but absolutely enchant them. I like that idea. I like the idea of something becoming a magic item during gameplay. Yeah, you should make it thematic. You should make it cool. And he actually says one sword is his grandfather's and one is his father's. Right. So what if the swords actually got imbued with the spirit of his ancestors?
Right.
And you can even look, depending on what you want to do, you can even look at the, is it a Moonblade for the elves?
Yes,
and do something similar to that as a guideline. And, if that's too strong, you can always water that down, or maybe that's what you want to go towards, and it builds, as the character levels, it gets more powerful. Or you could just have pivotal moments in this character's life that are reflected in the swords becoming stronger. Plus, we don't know what kind of paladin he is or who he worships. He could have totally did something different. Maybe he doesn't worship a god. Maybe he does ancestor worship, and then that would totally work even more so.
Right. So I look at it. Number one, as you said, there was the change of science was definitely an impact on 3rd edition, and here in 5th. The weapons, they go from 0 to 3 as opposed to 1, 1 to 5. So they brought that number down. Overall, the plus to hit, I don't want to say is meaningless in this edition, because it's not. But the bound,
because you get so few pluses in this edition.
The bounded accuracy has got everything so much lower. So while yes, pluses to hit are important, they're not as important because the armor classes are so much lower. was it 25, 26 is the highest
Yeah.
AC in the game for, anything in the monster manual. So, like, you don't need those ridiculous pluses. So let's suppose, okay, well, I get to 17th level, so I've got,
Plus 12.
plus 12 is the top.
No, with a plus 1 sword, that's like 5 and 6.
Yeah, having a
and
20th,
12.
a 20 in a stat.
So even like you're not quite hitting like the Tarrasque 50% of the time, but you're hitting them often.
So, like, you've got that to factor in. So if you're not always going up against, the Tarrasques and these, ancient dragons, you don't need that +3 weapon. You don't need even a +1 weapon. So, I like the idea of either pivotal moments. My personal thing would be, okay, he didn't know it, but his swords become magical after, so much time, and he can go on a quest, actually have a conversation with his father and grandfather, whether they're dead or not, have this be some kind of spiritual journey, and at the end these blades become awakened to some degree or another. I would say make the one a +1 weapon, make the other one a +2 weapon, give the +1 weapon some kind of nifty ability to go with it. Done and done. That'll see him through his entire career. Doesn't need anything else.
Well, or you can make it +0 with a nifty ability. Like,
Yeah,
you could even just pull something right from the
DMJ.
DMG. Maybe one of them actually one day becomes a Holy Avenger.
Right.
I wouldn't go with a pair of Holy Avengers. That might be a bit much.
Yeah.
But what if you had like something where you decided to do a quest where, the players were all going to receive some kind of reward or boon, and it was more specific to the players. And like you made me think when you said awaken, because I was like thinking along the same lines. The boon giver is like, well, for you for a long time your blades have slumbered, now let them awaken. And you could do something cool and thematic with that. And
I see pulling out a like a silver wash basin and pouring holy water and dipping the blades in it and having them come out and wreathed in like silver flames that die down. You can have a really cool ceremony or descriptive moment that the character's gonna remember.
Yeah, like when I gave Bloodfang his flame tongue greatsword, I had actually toyed with the idea, instead of gifting him with a new weapon, actually just enchanting the one he already had. So so I like that idea. I like the aspect of, instead of them always having to find the magic item, find the loot, that it actually gets created or during the gameplay, and it especially with something that's already important to them.
Right.
It'll just add value to those weapons in the player's eyes, and it'll make a stronger role playing impetus for that character, that player going forward, in my opinion.
So my idea, I like the awaken idea. I think it would be really cool thematically and like a good RP session. I was also thinking that he could get either some kind of letter or information or some kind of object from a relative, or in some way gain some knowledge that the weapons are actually made out of not normal metal, but some type of strange
Valyrian steel.
Meteoric metal, and they actually much like some kind of like a magic absorption kind of thing. So basically, if you test the metal of the item versus another and it breaks it, it can then absorb the essence of that, but not like, oh, you just smashed a +1 sword with this weird metal sword, it's now a +1 sword. No, it might make it magical, or it might do nothing. So you got to go around smashing some magic items in the hopes that yours will actually improve, and then the DM can moderate that. It's a way to be like, I don't get enough magic items in 5th to say, I don't need this. But if for some reason you're like, well, here's a +1 scimitar, well, no one else uses it, so and then that's kind of player agency on whether or not he wants to skip out and actually use a different thing, or if he wants to risk breaking something that has obvious value for the chance that his things that he has a background and RP attachment to, for them to get better. And maybe it is like when you break a +1 sword, it just turns yours into a magic sword. And then, you break something else and it might gain just like strange things.
Magic eating metal.
Maybe when you draw it flashes and like gives someone disadvantage, and like that's all it does. It's like when you draw it, that's what happens. You actually don't know what's going to happen, so it's like a risk reward kind of thing.
Okay.
I like that,
Little bit
but
of gamble.
less so for this scenario, only because like the character's a paladin. He's going with his grandfather and his father. Maybe they were paladins too, and it comes from a long line of paladins. I like the idea of going with the divine aspect with this one, and being like, well, maybe the father and grandfather linger around these weapons, because they're attached to it, and they've used them to battle evil for so many years, and now the grandson is carrying the torch, so to speak. But I mean, that's more of a flavor and opinion thing than anything. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that idea. I think it's great. I just think that idea is cooler for like a different type of warrior.
Right.
Yeah, with this one, I think your best bet would be to go with something that's going to have like the lineage concept to it, especially because he's attached to these weapons and using them over.
Yeah, you
ones.
could totally do the flippin' Star Wars thing, right? Where like the father and the grandfather are like appearing to you, and like you hear them talking, so like they're spirits. And eventually, like maybe that's like the prelude to the weapons actually fully awakening and becoming, useful magic items. And along with Ted saying like the one is slightly more powerful than the other, well, the one is slightly older than the other too. So that would kind of that might kind of work as well.
I just like
And
some
they're Dragonborn, so.
So some people like to have like, oh well, I want a pair of swords that are identical. I like the concept of them being different. I know it makes it a little bit more challenging when you're doing the crunch. I got to make the attack with this one. Got to make the attack with this one. But
Color dice.
We have the technology. We can figure this out.
But I just like the concept of them being different because they came from different people.
Did we ever say that this GM 911 was from Fair Play?
Yes, Play Fair.
Cool. Play Fair. I'm a little dyslexic.
So you guys know how the GM 911 works. If you have any comments for Play Fair of how to deal with this situation, put it in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, subscribe.
You can check us out at nerdarchy.com.
Let's join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.